Hello and welcome to this Astranti bite-sized video. What you see in front of you is an extract from our P2 module on risk, which is part of our full P2 course of CIMA materials on the Astranti website. This topic comes up across all of the P modules, P1, 2 and 3 in various forms, and it is a popular topic that is assessed in the case studies also across all three modules. So it's a topic worth learning. So without further ado, let's take a look at risk in P2.
So we'll start by looking at what risk is and give you a quick story or a quick example about, say, you're going out shopping. And now you think of going out shopping as just a mundane activity or an exciting activity, depending on your view on shopping. But actually, when you go out shopping, you yourself are putting yourself under the chance of feeling the effects of risks. There's the risk that you may run into a friend and get chatting and then miss an appointment, or there's the risk that you might be hit by a car, or there's the risk that you'll get involved in some sort of accident. Maybe you'll step in wet cement and be stuck there forever. There's the risk that you'll have your wallet stolen or your credit card stolen, or the risk that you just might spend too much, or you might be overcharged, or you might not get the correct amount of change back from your purchase. All of these are risks that you expose yourself to when you go shopping. And we're going to apply this to a business now by using the example of Sam and Sam's coffee shop. And Sam opens his coffee shop and is exposed to many different risks. There's the risk that he'll lose his investment. He spends all his money opening his coffee shop and it's a complete failure and he loses all that money. There's the risk that he'll have no customers, that his coffee shop is okay, but it's not as good or it's too expensive compared to the other coffee shop down the road, and so he gets no customers. Could be that he breaks a food safety law. Maybe he's been leaving his cakes out for too long and they've been going stale and he's breaking all sorts of laws, and then the food safety standards people come in and they shut him down. There's the risk that customers might steal his products or his employees might steal his products. Maybe they are positioning the cooler with the fizzy drinks and the orange juices, etc., too close to the entrance and exit, and thieves are coming off the street and just quickly nabbing a can of Pepsi or something from the cooler and then leaving again. Could be that he has staffing issues, no one wants to work for him, or the staff that he have are not pulling their weight and they're being quite slapdash in their cleaning, or they are rude to the customers, etc. Or it could even be that he's just not getting the best quality ingredients. The reason why his coffee shop is not doing very well is because he's not getting good quality coffee beans, and as a result that's producing poor quality coffee, and that is leading to the undesirable outcome of slow business. So the formal definition now, and this is an important formal definition for you to consider for the CIMA syllabus, so please make sure you are aware of this, is that risk is the potential that a chosen action will lead to an undesirable outcome. So for example, looking back at Sam and his coffee shop, he goes to a certain supplier because they're going to offer him coffee beans at a good rate. What's the risk that that chosen action to use that supplier will lead to an undesirable outcome of poor quality coffee beans? When he hires a particular staff member, what is the risk that that staff member will turn out to be a poor employee? And so on. And risk generally falls into the category of an upside risk. This is where the outcome was better than we expected, or a downside, which is where the outcome was worse than expected. And downside is the more likely thing that you will be coming across in your exam. Generally, when risk is spoken about in the CIMA exam or in any kind of way, shape or form, generally we're talking about downside risk. With upside risk, it's usually a good thing. It was better than we expected. So it's usually written off as fortunate, and we don't really tackle an upside risk, and we don't really plan for upside risks. It's more downside risks that form the majority of your analysis when there's a chance that it will be worse than you expect. So with that definition in mind, we now know what risk is, that it's an undesirable outcome. But of course, you can't go throughout your entire life, be it personally or professionally, or from the perspective of a business can't continue operating without taking risks. But it's important to know when to take risks. And that's going to be the focus of this second part of the introduction. And as the word risk suggests, there is uncertainty. You may have an incentive to undertake a risk, as in potentially big returns, but you're afraid of what could go wrong. And that's essentially what we as management accountants need to do. We need to look at the reward versus the risk. Now, if the potential reward is greater than the potential risk, as you can see illustrated here by the seesaw where the reward is higher, then arguably you could undertake the risk. Now, if the risk is much greater than the potential reward, then you shouldn't be undertaking it. So essentially it's about balancing risk and reward. If the potential reward is better than the potential risk, go ahead. If the potential reward is worse than the potential risk, then don't go ahead. But there is the potential for failure in the scenario where the reward is better than the risk. And there's also the possibility of returns when the reward is, or chance of reward is lower than the chance of risk. So it's not that binary that we can just say, oh, well, there's a 90% chance of success in this one, and there's a 90% chance of failure in this one here, when there is potential rewards still in that scenario with a high risk, and there's still potential failure in that scenario with the high chance of rewards. So risks must be managed against the cost of risk management. This is one way of mitigating it. And so, for example, with Sam and his coffee shop, there is the chance that his coffee shop may burn down. That is a potential risk. But then, of course, there are the rewards of operating a successful coffee shop that these must be tied against. So perhaps he could mitigate against the risk of fire by taking out insurance, taking out fire insurance. Now, if the cost of the insurance is less than the damage that a fire would cause, then yes, go ahead with the insurance, because the risk is balanced with the cost of risk management there. It costs more to deal with the risk actually happening than the cost of dealing with that risk. But if the insurance were to increase, got to the point where the cost of insuring against a fire was actually greater than the damage that a fire would do to the coffee shop, then it wouldn't be balanced. It would make more sense just to not have insurance and pay for the fire damage if it were to occur, if the cost of the insurance is actually greater than the damage that the fire would do. So as you can see, once we have identified risks, once we understand risks, we can identify how to correctly mitigate them and manage them effectively. And we're going to come on to more about this later in this video when we're looking at strategic and operational risks, but also later in this P2 video series where we look specifically at risk management. And this will also form a significant part of your P3 studies, which focuses more on risk management.